color correction in Natron. Before we proceed any further, I need you to add something to the interface, please, because when we talk color correction, we should be able to see the colors as well, okay? So here, down here, we'll be adding here, split vertical, and we will be adding a histogram, so new histogram. This way, when we work with colors, we'll be able to see what we're doing, and I'll be able to explain to you a few things. It will be better, you will understand better, okay? That's number one. Okay, so where do we get our nodes from? You have down here the a list of nodes, and everything has to do with color is in here. You got ColorCorrect, grade, HSV tool, saturation, quite a few, hue correct as well. So quite a few nodes. We're going to start with grade. Okay, so let's start with grade. Number one, grade. I'm going to explain a few things before we move to the parameters, because well, this you may already know it, but in case you don't, I think I should explain this. I'll do it briefly. I'm talking here about the red, green, blue, and alpha values that you see on the screen down here. Here, when I move with the cursor, for every pixel, it gives me the values of the red, green, and blue. And the alpha, well, the alpha is not there for a simple reason that when I double click on the read, here, output component, it says RGB. If I say RGBA, and I come back here, I will find my alpha there. But alpha is equal to 1, which basically means opaque. Okay, there's no alpha in this footage. Okay, so I'll just bring it back to RGB. That's in case you need alpha. And what are these values? How important? Why should we even care about these? There is something about the range, and everything you do has to do with that range. Everything is between 0 and 1. 0 being black and 1 being white. Now, are there values less than 0? If you move in here, you won't find that many. You won't find any actually. But there are instances where values go below 0. You have negative values. These are what we call the sub-blacks. So 0 is black, and you have negative, that's sub-black. And 1 is white. 1 is white. So this is the 0, and this is the 1, right? 0, 1. 0 is black, and then when it goes lower than 0, it's sub-black. 1 is white, and when it goes higher, it's super white. Now, the sub-blacks and the super whites are not welcome. We want to make sure that our values stick within the range of 0 to 1, okay? That is for a correct picture. Now, when we come to the grade here, I have clump black and clump white. Now, to make sure that my values, this is by default checked in. By default, you have the blacks don't go lower than 0, because this is checked. If you want your whites not to go higher than 1, then you need to do this as well. Okay, so just to make sure that we protect our values between 0 and 1, we keep them in the range. Now we talk about the parameters: black point, white point, black, white, multiply. What is all of this? Okay, this is why we talked about black values, white values, zeros, ones. This is exactly the point why I had to mention this before talking about the grade. Note, black point is basically 0 here, and white is 1. Okay, now when I increase this, what happens? The image gets darker. Okay, so what happens really in the background? In the background, I am telling Natron that I want the values of the pixels that have 0.17 to be converted into 0. Anything between 0 and this value needs to become black, needs to become 0. Okay, so it's like redefining the black. And because most of the values are somewhere here, between 0.05 and 0.3540, most of them are here. If you go just a bit like this, you've covered most of the image. Okay, so this is something to be aware of. I right click and I say reset. All right, white point is exactly the opposite, but it does the same thing. But that's for the white. We have 1. If I bring it down from 1, then I'm saying can you please turn the values of the pixels between 1, now this time we're starting from 1, not from 0, between 1 and 0.37, which basically covers 0 0.9, 0 0.8, 0 0.7, 0 0.6, 0 0.5, 0 0.4, up till 0.37. All of them, make them white. We didn't manage to cover much because, as I said, much of the values are between 0.05 and 0.35. But if you go any lower, you start touching the other values, most of the values, okay? Reset to default. Black, well, this simply redefines what black is. Black is 0, or is black 0.5? 0.1. It's just redefining what black is, and here redefining what white is. Okay. I don't think you want to redefine black and white. Okay, changing the values. It's more like if you need, you tweak the black point and the white point. Multiply. Multiply is taking any value of the pixel and multiplying it by this stuff in here. If it's 2, then you're asking, and if the value of the pixel is 0.22, then it's going to become 0.44. Okay, so this is what really happens in the background. It looks like we're increasing the gain, it looks like we're making it brighter, but in reality in the background, that's what's happening. We're making pixels times 2. Its value is times 2, which means it's going to be lighter. Okay, multiply by 0 basically means, I just did this by mistake. That's a mistake, but it's a good mistake not to explain. Multiply by 0. The initial default was 1. Multiply by 0 means everything needs to turn black. That's what it has done for me. You wanted black, I gave you black. Okay, 0.5, I have asked for the values to be divided, so it becomes darker. Let's go back to the 1. What does offset do? Okay, before we move to offset, let me go back to black point and white point and explain what happens in the histograms. So that when I come to offset, you know what I'm talking about. Remember when we have talked about increasing the black point. When you increase the black point, can you look at the shape down in the histogram? What is going on? It is being sucked towards the 0, which basically means please make, it's like moving all the pixels and making them 0. Not all of them. As I go up, it converts those that are between 0 and this range, it's converted into black, which is this value here, 0. All right. Same story when I come to the whites. If I come down, it is being sucked by the 1. So it's like that you have a vacuum cleaner and you're just sucking them, right? But it comes, it's like they are being converted into 1, so they're being sucked, moved. Now, the difference with offset is that when you move it, you are actually moving everything. The whole shape is moving. You're moving everything towards the white or everything towards the black, moving the whole shape of the pixels. And the last one, the gamma. The gamma is, as you know, just acting on the midtones. Midtones means we're going to, it's like holding the shape from the middle. And we move it. If we increase up, we are actually acting on the midtones. True that this part has been shrinked now, but once you start moving it, it's like holding it from the middle. Okay, we're acting on the midtones. Okay, enough about this part. We're now going to move to another node, and that is going to be the ColorCorrect node. Okay, let me bring the ColorCorrect node. Well, let's use the tab and ColorCorrect. Right, ColorCorrect, I want to use it with this footage. All right, let's connect to this footage. I'll move it just a little bit like this, get it a bit closer. All right. ColorCorrect, what is the difference with grade? Like, why would you use ColorCorrect and not grade? Well, ColorCorrect gives you way more possibilities because it acts, you can act individually on shadows, on midtones, and on highlights. Not only just on the master, on the whole image, but you can adjust these parameters, same parameters, for shadows, midtones, and highlights. Now, before we start tweaking this to see what difference it does, the shadows, midtones, or highlights are already predefined, okay? But you get the chance to change them if you want to. If you want to redefine shadows and midtones and highlights, by all means, you can do that. Where can you do that? In the tab here, Ranges, you have your shadows, midtones, and highlights. Like, where are the midtones? Where the midtones are the difference between shadows and highlights. Now, in Nuke, you find shadows, midtones, and highlights. In here, let me just press OK. All right. So when you select shadows, highlights, you by defining these, by changing the definition, I'll just select this one as well. By moving this, you actually are also redefining the midtones, because it's what's between shadows and highlights is midtones. You can, this way, if you want, redefine them depending on your image. There are some particular cases where you want to do that, but most likely than not, you don't need to do this stuff, because then you can come and act on your redefined ranges. Okay, now we don't need to redefine anything. We're going to reset and come back to the control. Shadows, midtones, and highlights. Now, what can we do? Say, for example, for the shadows, and they're going to be the dark sides, the dark parts of the image, I want to desaturate them a little bit, because if I want to have this one like a more darker and black, and more black, I want to desaturate it just a bit and increase a little bit of contrast. Okay, I'm just acting on the shadows. Bit of contrast and no gain. Now, I need to be careful that I'm not hurting my black details. All right, and I will come to the midtones and give a little bit more saturation. Just for the midtones, not so much. Okay, and I come to the highlights and give a little bit more gain. Okay, so this is a little bit just an example of tweaking that you may want to do. Just reduce the gain a bit. No, just reduce it a bit. Okay, so before and after, let me just stand on the ColorCorrect selected and then press D for disable. Before, after, before, after. You can act individually on shadows, midtones, and highlights. Okay, now we're done about this node. We're going to move to another one. Let's move to the next node, and that is HueCorrect. HueCorrect is, oh, let's just bring it with the tab. HueCorrect. Now this one is quite handy, very, very useful for many cases, but specifically, well, we're going to take an example where we have a scene and there's a lot going on, but for some reason, the blue jeans of this guy are standing out in the image, yet they don't have a role in the whole story. And you may be thinking, I want to downplay that blue. I just want it to merge, to be invisible in the whole thing. Like, it's all about what's going on. It's all about the little girl crying, her father died. It's all about what is going on around her. And it's not about the trousers. So what we think is we need to just target this one. HueCorrect is where you start targeting colors, okay? With rotoscoping, you can target images, zones of images, areas, but with HueCorrect, you are going to select a particular value of hue. So when we move, just if you look at this part here, when I move with the cursor, it's already telling me what the values are. But wait, if I do like this with my mouse and move away, it disappears. Well, it's because I need to select it. How do I select it? I need to press Control-Shift and then select that color. Now that I've done that, there's this rectangle and the value is fixed. Now, what can I do about it? I can do all of this stuff. I can act on the saturation, luminosity. I can act on the reds alone, on the greens alone, on the blues alone. I can, this is red suppress, green suppress, blue suppress. I can remove the red, I can remove the green, remove the blue, and I can act on this saturation threshold. What I want to do now is simply desaturate it. So what I'll do is when I do this, I get this line with a few dots. These dots are just there to help me. So I'm going to move them around. Where's this line? It's here. So I need to be somewhere here. I need to bring this. I need 3 dots. One to be on the left, one to be on the right, and one to bring it down. So now you notice, and please be careful with how wide this range is. Now, the wider it is, the more values of your image are going to be impacted. Now, maybe this is the look you want to go for. By all means, do it, but be aware that if you only want to target the trousers and nothing else, well, unless there are exact values of hue on other objects, which I don't think there are, then you're going to target just that particular value over there. I don't need to stand on the... That's it. If you notice now, let me just disable and enable. Disable, enable, disable, enable. Now, there is some blue here, right, which is also being impacted. You can reduce this to have less of an impact on it. Okay, and now it is less visible. So the only bit is we're acting on the trousers. Gone, disabled, enabled, disabled, enabled, disabled. See the difference? Let me bring it closer. Enabled, oh, sorry. Enabled, disabled, enabled, disabled. This is where you think something is standing out too much, or you want to bring something to the attention. Okay, so if you want, if there's an object, if there's a gun, if there's anything you want to make more obvious, you can come and give it a boost of saturation, a little bit of luminosity, and yeah, you just bring it more to the attention of the audience. And that's one of the uses of the hue correct. Okay, now this one is done. Let's move to another node. And for this one, I'm going to come to this clip over here, and I will change to another frame where I have 2 people shooting with a gun, with Kalashnikovs. Okay, this is good enough. Okay, right. Well, have you noticed this rectangle is still there? Now, how do you get rid of this? Well, how did you bring it in? Control Shift. Okay, Control Shift and click. It's gone. All right. All right. So now I'm going to bring. Let me just delete this one. I'm going to bring the other node, which is the HSV tool. HSV tool. This is a lovely one, and it's about creativity. You can change things. Okay, I'll show you one of the uses. Say, for example, you use hue rotation. Hue rotation is when you start redefining, actually moving the colors around in the color wheel. The color wheel, let me just bring that thing, color wheel. Okay, it's as if we are shuffling around. It's like we're moving this around. We're like shifting the blue is here. Okay, we're going to put it somewhere. Red is here, or it's probably going to end up here. Green is maybe it's going to end up here. So it's like moving it around, which basically means if we come here now and look at our picture, if this is blue, now it's going to become something else. So we come to HSV tool and we can tweak a little bit, but then, yeah, this is now impacting the whole image, but it's just to give you the idea of what you can do, right? So it's even impacting the sky. And if you want to change the color, like to reddish, brownish, bit of olive green, if you want to stylize your image or part of the image, and when I say part of the image, you need to do rotoscoping for that. You rotoscope, and then you apply this one to the mask, to the rotoscoping. And since we have mentioned rotoscoping, that is the next section.